Good morning. Welcome to my page. If you are new to my page, and if you're not, hello again. I had something that I really wanted to share this morning because I am reading a new book. And if you follow me, you know I love books, and I am a big self-help kind of like, I just absorb and just love to read all about self-help. I've always been a self-help kind of person. And although I did like to read fiction, but I rarely read fiction anymore. But so I've got this book, and I actually, just a little bit of a background. I bought it for my husband, and he's not a big reader, but I was just hoping that this book, that he'd like this book, and he was having a lot of back pain. So I heard about this book from a podcast that I listened to. This guy that I listened to, James Wedmore, and I just really enjoy I connect with him. You know how some people you just connect with? And so this is what the book looks like. It's called, again, The Great Pain Deception. So I just want to tell you a little story that it just hits home personally to me, but I truly believe that your mind plays a big role in everything. It has so much power that it's so untapped, and how we use it. And I just think it's vital to really, for anybody who is struggling with anything, to really start to learn about what you can do with the mind, whether it's meditation or just, buy a book and start reading about the things that you can do that can really change your whole life, just by the way you think. And so what this book talks about is this syndrome, and it's called TMS. And what it stands for is tension myoneural syndrome. And so I'm just going to touch on a couple of things in the book first, and then I'm going to tell you my own personal story about how, now that I'm reading about this and I'm understanding it, I actually had an experience in the past where I had TMS, and I know I had TMS. And so I think it's vital that if you have a chronic condition, that you really listen. I think if you have a chronic condition, you should not accept just what the doctor's telling you. Doctors are human, and they don't know everything, and they don't know, everybody is unique, and how things affect people and how people respond in their own internal bodies is different than anybody else. And this is just super fascinating. So you owe it to yourself to do your own independent learning and understanding, and don't just believe what the doctors are telling you, and don't just rely on medicine. I think, I truly believe that our country, our healthcare system is run by the pharmaceutical companies. Doctors earn money by prescribing you drugs. Drug companies make money by you buying drugs. So do not be somebody who wants to go get a pill to solve their problem, because oftentimes it's oftentimes it's probably your diet, it's probably not enough water you're drinking, and it's probably something that your mind is doing. And so you might think I'm nuts, but for those of you that are paying attention and are open to hearing this, then please do yourself. I mean, your life can change so much just by opening yourself up to learning and understanding and trying different things besides drugs. All right, so just a little touch on TMS. So TMS, an acute and chronic nerve pain, as well as muscular pain, and a wide variety of other symptoms. So what he has on the cover of all the things that could be TMS related are bursitis, shin splints, migraines, hemorrhoids, GERD, irritable bowel, hypertension, chronic fatigue. I had chronic fatigue back, that's another story. I have two stories that are related to TMS. Carpal tunnel, arthritis, ulcers, vertigo, frequent urination, colitis, frozen shoulder. I had frozen shoulder last year, and I'm thinking about some things that are related to that. Irritable bladder. So all these things could be, they're kind of like, these are things that are related to muscular and nerve system. And so that is kind of what TMS is related to. Like TMS is not a broken bone. TMS is not like a severed spine. I mean, there's clearly things that happen in life that are, that are, your body's broken, right? So anyways, so there's a couple of little passages here before I get to my story. I urge you to stick with this whole video, and I ask that you share this video. Please share this video because it will help one person. If it helps one person, then I am thrilled. All right, so I've highlighted a couple of passages. I actually shared this on my page as well, but listen to this. Pain and other chronic symptoms are physical manifestations of unresolved internal conflict. Symptoms surface as an instinctual mechanism for self-survival. They are messages from the inner self wanting to be heard, but ego takes center stage and hides the truth within the shadows of the unconscious mind, which is the body. One purpose of these physical symptoms is to keep the individual focused on his physical body and away from surfacing emotions. Interesting, huh? And then this other one is TMS pain is a deception by the brain, an act of psychological subterfuge. Once in pain, the sufferer has no choice but to focus on his pain and away from his unconscious rage along with the reason behind it. So this Dr. Sarno, who's somebody, he's a real live doctor, and he did lots and lots of medical research and has lots and lots of proven success stories. But he believes that TMS pain is a purposeful distraction created by the brain as a favor to the mind-body, which enables the self to avoid having to think about darker, morbid, resentful, vengeful, and selfish thoughts. Life continues, emotions buried alive. When we don't get what we want or don't like what we see in ourselves, the mind sets upon the flesh. So my personal story. So I've talked about this a little bit. I'm not sure how public I've made it because in all honesty, it's embarrassing, and it's a lot of people hide this. But I consider myself a really strong person emotionally, but sometimes strong people, they're the worst because they internalize stuff because they don't want to show their emotions, right? So when my daughter, my oldest daughter, I have two daughters, when my oldest daughter, 2 days before her 21st birthday, the night before, well, not before her 21st birthday, it was about 36 hours before her 21st birthday, she collapsed. I was at work. My ex-husband he had come home and gone to the grocery store. Fortunately for all of us, because she was dead if my younger daughter wasn't home. So my younger daughter was doing an internship with me, and she had come to me around 2 o'clock in the afternoon and said, I'm done with my work, can I go home? And it was her last day of her summer internship. So I said, sure, go ahead and go home. So my daughter, my older daughter, was working out in our basement. We had a large house, and my younger daughter was upstairs, and my younger daughter felt something in her chest pop while she was doing an exercise, and she collapsed. She was able to get conscious enough to crawl to the staircase and yell for her sister. Her sister came downstairs, realized that there was an emergency, and called me at work and said, I think she needs to go to we need to call the ambulance. Why she didn't call the ambulance, I don't know. And you know how you look back and you think, wow, how life happens. It could have gone this way, which would have been disaster, or it could have gone this way, which it did, which was, thank God. So I had a 5 o'clock meeting, and I remember looking at my phone. Like now, my office, we don't have phones. I have my cell phone. It's kind of funny. But I looked at my phone when the phone was ringing, and I remember exactly, it said 5 o'clock, so I was late to my meeting, and it said my home number. And I thought, this might be important. Let me pick it up. And it was my younger daughter telling me that my older daughter was having something wrong with her. And prior to this, she had had some trouble breathing, and she thought she had gotten injured. She was a soccer player, and she had been like punched in the chest. So she had gone to the doctor about it, but the doctor prescribed her some kind of, I forget what it was, some muscle relaxer or something. So I didn't realize the extent of this problem that she was having. And so, you know, she was in college. She was about to go into her senior year in college, and she was home for the summer. So she was kind of dealing with it on her own. In hindsight, it was a blood clot. It was a blood clot that was kind of going through her system. And so that pop in her chest was actually the blood clot passing through her heart into her chest, I think. I'm not a doctor. Maybe it had already partly been in her chest. I don't know. So I called the ambulance and, of course, dropped everything, got in my car. I swear to you, my house was like 20 minutes from where I worked, and I got home in 10. And by the time I got home, and in the meantime, my ex-husband had been, you know, we called him. He got in the car, got home, so he was home with the ambulance. And so the ambulance was still in my driveway. She was in the ambulance, and the EMTs were with her. So they asked if I wanted to go in the ambulance. I said yes. So I went in the ambulance, in the front seat of the ambulance. And let me tell you, we lived in the Washington, D.C. area, and it was rush hour traffic. I've never seen, it was like the Red Sea parting. I mean, it was like going to the hospital. It was like, and we are so, so fortunate as a family because there's lots of hospitals in the D.C. area. My ex-husband they said, what hospital you want us to take her to? Coincidentally, he took her to the right hospital. He said, take her to, it's Inova Fairfax Hospital. And there was a pulmonary specialist in the ER. So she was immediately diagnosed with pulmonary emboli, which you think of embolism, emboli. She had 2. Her lungs were completely, I'll get emotional here. So she was immediately in good hands. So they knew what she had. And so they cut her clothes off. They immediately started giving her drugs. They asked me to sign a waiver because she was going to be getting a drug that was very dangerous. It's called TPA. So she was immediately put into ICU with everybody was old and seniors. And here was this young almost 21-year-old. And I laid on the tile floor that night. I slept on the cold tile floor next to her bed because TPA is a drug that makes you bleed out, basically. It makes your blood like water. And so that's how you dissolve a blood clot right away. There's other blood clot dissolving drugs, like you've heard of Coumadin is a pill form. There's another one that starts with an L, I can't think of it. But those, they kind of dissolve the blood clot over a 6-week period. So TPA is kind of a clot buster. It'll bust the clot right away. But at the same time, you can die from it if you have any kind of something internally that's like you cause brain bleed. And anyway, so that's why I had to sign the waiver, and I had to sit with her. And the nurses asked me, to watch her. And she had when they gave her some IVs, they had like stuck her, doesn't have good veins. And so they had a few pinpricks. And very shortly after they started the TPA, her blood started rushing out down her arm from just where those little pinpricks were. So I called the nurse came in, wrapped her arm really good, and then she was okay. So she was okay. She got through the night. She got out of ICU. By the time she was in ICU for 24 hours. So on her 21st birthday, she was in the hospital, and she spent a week in the hospital. And anyways, so this is where TPS comes in. So about a month later, and mind you, I didn't know anything. I didn't relate these two things at all. But within a month of her having this, us having this basically life-threatening situation, I started getting anxiety attacks. Never in a million years was I ever anxious. Did I ever have anxiety attacks? Never. Out of the blue, I started having anxiety attacks. And these are like panic attacks where my heart starts racing, my palms get clammy, I can't finish a sentence. I was very high up at America Online, AOL. People know it as AOL. So I worked at AOL, and during this time, I started like, I remember vividly being in a conference room with a bunch of people and talking and speaking, and then a panic attack set in, and I actually had to get up and leave the room. I just like said, I couldn't talk anymore, and I ran out of the room. And my heart's racing, and it's like, oh my, it's panic. If you've ever had a panic attack, they're not fun. I mean, it's like, I guess how you be when a bear was chasing you or something, you're running for your life. And then when you start to get panic attacks, you start to fear them. You start to fear, you don't know when one's going to come on, and you don't know, and it's usually the worst situation. And of course I told nobody about it, because you hide it, because you think there's something wrong with you. I remember interviewing somebody for a job and getting a panic attack in the middle of interviewing that person. I remember after I left AO, these continued, like, mind you, these continued for several years. I don't know how long, but I wanted to get a handle, and they weren't like often, they were seldom, which made it even worse, because they were hard to control and to predict. And then I remember after I left AOL and I was transitioning, my ex-husband and I split up, and I was moving to Charlottesville, relocating there. And I remember interviewing for a job, and I got a panic attack while I was interviewing for a job. And I was like, man, I can't, like, I'll never get a job if I get these panic attacks while I'm interviewing. And so I started to read about, like, what is wrong? Why, what causes panic attacks? Why am I getting panic attacks? And what I read, and the other thing, look, yes, I should mention this. Somebody suggested I get on medication, that I take a pill. And I was so desperate that I really actually thought about it. And I went to a doctor. I did go to a doctor, and he didn't want to put me on something strong, but I got an anti-anxiety pill. I think I started it, but I couldn't sleep. I think that was the thing. And then you're supposed to get used to it after a while, and then you can sleep. And I'm like, I'm not doing this. I am not taking drugs to control something that I think is all up here. And so when I started to read about what was causing panic attacks, one of the things that struck me was that I would love to know if any of you have ever had a panic attack, because that would be very, very interesting to see if I have any people who can relate, or know anybody who does. But I read that panic attacks are the result sometimes, if there is a life event that you have no control over, and it happens, and and I tend to be like, I'm an in charge kind of person, controlling maybe a little. So I try, at my older years, I've tried to be less controlling, but I'm just like a very type A, very like want to do things perfectionist type of personality. And so when something happens to you, like your child almost dies and comes this close to dying, and I kept reliving it in my head. I kept reliving it over and over, like, what if I hadn't let my younger daughter go home? What if I had gone to that meeting and hadn't picked up my phone? What if we were getting ready to go on a trip, in like 2 weeks we were going to be going on this kind of like island to island excursion to the Bahamas, and what if we were on a remote island? The doctor, I remember saying to the doctor when we were in the ER, what if we were in the Bahamas if this happened? He said, he did that. He went like, so I kept thinking about the worst case scenario, and it just mentally, and so when I read this, I'm only on like, I read the first chapter. That's in the first chapter of this book, what I read to you. And then I started the second chapter, and he said, if you want to read about my story, go to chapter 3 and then come back to this chapter. So I've read like chapter 1 and half of chapter 3. So, but when I read that, I was like, that is what exactly happened to me. I couldn't handle what happened. So I internalized all those emotions. I hid them away. I couldn't express them. My ego was too strong to, like, I think with anxiety attacks, the more you talk about them too, the more you can get to the bottom of them. So, and then I started to get okay because I knew I could relate. Oh my gosh, this started happening a month after that episode, that life experience. And so I haven't had a panic attack for years. I haven't had a panic attack for, gosh, I think it's been probably since I've been married, 9.5 years. And so I think now that I'm reading this, I'm like, oh my gosh, I had TMS. And so, think about if you have any of this chronic pain, think about things that, that emotions that might be like residing inside of you that are redirecting you from those thoughts and dealing with those thoughts that are redirecting you to whatever kind of neuromuscular pain you might be having. But get the book. It's again, The Great Pain Deception. At least be open enough to research, be open enough to discover, be open enough to at least look at it and say, that guy's a nutcase, I mean, at least but I love the saying, know better, do better. Oprah said that, better, you do better. And so maybe you know better and you just, think that's for the birds. Maybe you read it and it really resonates and can change your life, or it can change the life of somebody that you love and that you know. So I'm super passionate about this. So let's see. You have pain from cancer drug you're taking. Yeah, drugs. I mean, I think drugs can cause a lot of pain, but if you have a serious disease like cancer, then what do? You take the drug, right? I would want to take the drug. But anybody who has cancer should look into. I have another great book, but it's about acid. I'll share it. I'll put it in the comments here. But basically what I've learned about cancer is that cancer loves acidity. They like an acidic environment. Cancer cells don't like an alkaline environment. Some foods are more acidic and some foods are more alkaline. We want our body to be in the middle. We don't want an acidic body. So of course, acidity, everything that you like to eat probably is acidic. So sugar, white bread, white things with white flour. So you want to look at these food lists and see and start eating from the acidic food list. You want lemon water, put lemon in your water. Lots of green leafy vegetables. That's very alkaline. So what I would recommend to you is to prevent cancer, and if you have cancer, start eating, get rid of the acidic foods in your diet, because you're feeding your cancer cells with acidic food. So who else is talking? I am a severe worrier. I bring on my own panic attacks. Yeah. And you quit drinking. Yay, you quit. Yay, you lost 9 pounds quitting your sodas. Oh my gosh, that's so great. Yes, diet, any soda is bad. Diet soda is just as bad as any soda. So happy for you. That is going to make you so much healthier. And in terms of you, Julie, if you're a worrier, please get this book. There's no reason to worry. You would benefit a lot by meditation. You need to get into your subconscious and just be at peace. And that deep breathing will help you so much that you can do to help relieve your worry. I have a mother-in-law. She is a big worrywart too. So anyways, feel free to reach out to me and I will, recommend things. I've learned so much in my last 4 years as being a coach, and all the books that I've read. My mission really as a coach is to learn and share what I learned with everybody. And so I want to share and help people live better lives. And so this TMS thing I think is really real. And I think it can help a lot of people. Clearly, it's helped a lot of people because there are statistics in this book of the number of people it has helped. But you have to believe it. It's all about in the mind, right? So anyways, that is my Saturday soapbox. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I don't even have any makeup on. but I was feeling the passion, so I want to share it. All right? Okay, thanks. Mwah. Where's the off button? There it is.